Captain Zara Blackwood stood on the bridge of the ESS Relentless, trying not to roll her eyes as yet another alien transmission mocked her ship's quaint weapon systems. The message, like all the others, was dripping with the kind of condescension usually reserved for children who still believed in Santa Claus. "Oh look," she drawled to her XO, Commander Marcus Wong, "the Centaurians think our railguns are adorably primitive. Should we tell them about our pointy sticks too?" Wong snorted, his eyes never leaving his tactical display. "Maybe we should mention our slingshots, really give them something to laugh about." The Relentless was Earth's newest battlecruiser, though you wouldn't know it from the weaponry. While every other species in the known galaxy had moved on to energy weapons centuries ago, humanity had stubbornly clung to their obsolete kinetic weapon systems, rails guns, coil guns, good old-fashioned missiles, the kind of stuff that made other species ambassadors shake their head equivalents in pitying disbelief. "Captain," Lieutenant Rodriguez called from her communications station, "we're picking up a new signal, strong one, actually." She paused, frowning at her screen. "It's a whole fleet dropping out of FTL, classification unknown." Blackwood straightened in her chair, coffee mug forgotten in her hand. "Show me." The main view screen lit up with a sight that would have made any other species soil themselves. Emerging from the darkness of space like predators from the depths, came 7 ships of utterly alien design. They were beautiful in the way that venomous creatures often are, all sleek lines and deadly grace, their hulls shimming with an iridescent material that seemed to drink in the starlight. "Well," Blackwood muttered, "somebody's compensating for something." The largest ship alone was 3 times the size of the Relentless, its hull bristling with what were obviously weapon ports. Energy weapon ports, naturally, because apparently projectile weapons went out of style faster than bell-bottom pants. "Mum," Rodriguez said, "they're hailing us, identifying themselves as the Khazari Empire's first contact fleet." "Empire, huh?" Blackwood took a sip of her coffee. "No one ever shows up calling themselves the slightly presumptuous Republic or the "we're actually quite reasonable" Confederation." She nodded to Rodriguez. "Put them through." The alien that appeared on screen was exactly what you'd expect from a species that built ships like floating space cathedrals. Tall, regal, with skin that had the same iridescent quality as their ships. Its face was a masterpiece of evolutionary superiority, with 4 eyes set in perfect symmetry around what was presumably a nose. "Greetings, primitive vessel," the alien began, and Blackwood had to bite her cheek to keep from laughing. They always started with primitive. It was like they all got the same handbook. "I am High Commander Vexathor of the Khazari Empire. We have come to grace your sector with our presence and evaluate your species for potential elevation." Blackwood took another slow sip of coffee. "High Commander," she replied with all the enthusiasm of someone receiving a dental bill, "I'm Captain Zara Blackwood of the Earth spaceship Relentless. Welcome to our humble corner of space. I see you've brought friends." "These are merely a small demonstration of our might," Vexathor said, gesturing with one of his 4 arms. "Show off. Our sensors indicate your vessel still employs kinetic weapon systems. How quaint." We had assumed the reports were exaggerated. "Oh no, they're quite accurate," Blackwood replied cheerfully. "We humans are stubbornly attached to our bang-bang sticks and boom-boom tubes. Makes us feel all nostalgic." She could see Vexathor trying to process her tone, his 4 eyes blinking in an unsynchronized dance of confusion. Behind her, she heard Wong trying to cover a laugh with a cough. "Perhaps," Vexathor said slowly, "we should meet in person to discuss your species' potential." "Sounds lovely," Blackwood replied. "We have a saying on Earth, 'Come into my parlor,' said the spider to the fly. Ever heard it?" "I am not familiar with this reference." Don't worry about it," Blackwood smiled. "I'm sure you'll understand soon enough." As the transmission ended, Wong leaned forward. "They didn't scan our auxiliary weapon systems." "They never do," Blackwood replied, finally allowing herself a proper grin. "But hey, who are we to correct their assumptions about our primitive technology?" The massive alien ships loomed in the view screen, their energy weapons charging with all the subtlety of a disco ball in a library. Blackwood couldn't help but wonder if they'd ever asked themselves why humans, despite having access to the same technology as everyone else, chose to stick with their outdated weapons. They were about to find out. The diplomatic chamber aboard the Khazari flagship Eternal Radiance was exactly what you'd expect from a species that named their ships like rejected perfume brands. Every surface gleamed with that same iridescent material, making Captain Blackwood feel like she was standing inside a giant soap bubble. The effect was probably meant to be impressive. Mostly, it was giving her a headache. "As you can see," High Commander Vexathor was saying, gesturing at a holographic display with two of his arms while somehow managing to look down all four of his noses at once, "our shield technology renders any primitive kinetic weapons completely obsolete." Commander Wong, standing beside Blackwood, maintained his perfect poker face. "Fascinating," he said, in a tone that suggested watching paint dry might be more entertaining. The hologram showed a Khazari ship surrounded by layers of shimmering energy fields. Vexathor manipulated the display with his lower right arm, zooming in on one section. "Our multiphasic barrier system can detect any incoming projectile and generate a counter-frequency wave that simply," he made a dismissive gesture, "dissolves them." "Dissolves them," Blackwood repeated flatly, like soap on grease. A crude analogy, but essentially correct. Vexathor's smile showed too many teeth. "Which is why we find it so charming that your species insists on maintaining such outdated armaments." Behind them, Lieutenant Rodriguez was doing an admirable job of appearing to take diplomatic notes while actually playing space Tetris on her datapad. Blackwood had specifically chosen her most unimpressed-looking crew members for this meeting. "Tell me," Vexathor continued, "do you humans also still use combustion engines for your ground vehicles?" "Only on the weekends," Blackwood replied. "For fun, you know how it is with antiques." The sarcasm sailed right over all four of the aliens' eyes. This is precisely why the Khazari Empire has chosen to graciously offer Earth protection. Your species clearly requires guidance to reach its full potential. Blackwood shared a look with Wong that spoke volumes, most of them containing words their mothers would disapprove of. They both knew what the scans had shown about those impressive shield systems. The same vulnerability that every energy shield they'd encountered had a vulnerability that humanity had discovered centuries ago and had kept very, very quiet about. "Protection," Wong said slowly. "How generous. And what would this protection cost us?" Vexathor's personal shield shimmed as he moved, casting rainbow patterns across the chamber. "Merely your complete integration into the Empire. All military assets would be placed under Khazari control, of course, for your own safety." "Of course," Blackwood muttered, "because nothing says we come in peace like demanding control of our military." "You misunderstand," Vexathor said, his tone shifting from condescending to sharp. "This is not a negotiation. We've analyzed your capabilities. Your weapons are centuries behind ours. Your ships, while quaint, pose no threat to our superior technology." "Superior technology," Rodriguez piped up, not looking up from her notes. "Like that shield system that uses a standard oscillating frequency matrix?" The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Vexathor's four eyes narrowed simultaneously. "How do you know about the oscillation matrix?" Blackwood smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Oh, you know us primitive humans. We like to take things apart, see how they work. It's adorable, really." "Impossible," Vexathor snapped. "Our shield technology is beyond your comprehension. You couldn't possibly understand the way it creates a cascading energy field by synchronizing multiple barrier layers," Wong interrupted, "or how it uses quantum tunneling to redirect incoming energy weapons. That kind of incomprehensible stuff." The hologram flickered as Vexathor's hands clenched. "You will surrender your military assets to the Empire within one planetary rotation," he said, all pretense of diplomacy gone. "Or we will demonstrate exactly how ineffective your primitive weapons are against our superior technology." "One planetary rotation," Blackwood mused. "That's about 24 hours in primitive human time, right? How considerate of you to use our measuring systems." "This is not a joke, Captain." "Oh, I don't know." Blackwood stood, straightening her uniform. "I think it's pretty funny that you assumed we kept using kinetic weapons because we couldn't figure out energy weapons. Has it occurred to you that maybe, just maybe, we might have a reason?" "Your threats are as primitive as your weapons," Vexathor snarled. "The Empire will not be mocked by a species that thinks throwing metal very fast is the height of military technology." "You know what they say about assumptions, High Commander." Blackwood turned to leave, then paused. Oh, wait, you wouldn't know that saying either. Here's one you might understand better. Pride comes before a fall. You have 23 hours and 42 minutes remaining, Vexthor called after them as they walked out. Choose wisely. Back aboard the Relentless, Rodriguez finally looked up from her datapad. I got to level 47 in Space Tetris. Good use of diplomatic time, Blackwood approved. Also, did you see his face when you mentioned the oscillation matrix? All four of his eyes looked like they were going to pop out, Wong chuckled. Think they've figured out yet that we've known about the shield weakness for centuries? Blackwood settled into her command chair, watching the Khazari ships through the view screen. Their shield systems were gleaming like cosmic Christmas trees, broadcasting their vulnerability to anyone who knew what to look for. You know what the really funny part is, she said. They're so convinced of their superiority, they haven't even noticed we're not running away. 23 hours and counting, Wong reminded her. Should we tell them we've already moved our fleet into position? Nah, Blackwood grinned. Let's let them enjoy their superiority complex for a few more hours. Besides, I want to see their faces when they figure out why humanity never bothered upgrading to energy weapons. The Khazari ships loomed in the viewport, their shields shimmering with all the subtle menace of a disco ball at a funeral. In 23 hours, they were going to learn a very important lesson about making assumptions, and Blackwood was going to enjoy every minute of it. The first plasma bolt from the Khazari fleet lit up space like a cosmic fireworks display gone wrong. Captain Blackwood watched it streak past the Relentless's bow with all the concern of someone watching a kid with a water pistol. Oh no, she deadpanned. Whatever shall we do against such terrifying technology? Lieutenant Commander Rex Chen's voice crackled over the comm from the weapons control center. Should I start screaming in terror now or wait for their second shot? Maintain protocol, Chen, Blackwood replied, fighting back a grin. Remember your training. Proper terror requires at least 3 enemy shots. The Khazari ships moved in perfect formation, their energy weapons creating a light show that would put Vegas to shame. The human fleet, meanwhile, performed what could only be described as the worst attempt at evasive maneuvers since the invention of spaceflight. Their targeting systems must be confused by our incompetence, Wong observed, watching as another plasma bolt missed by a mile. They probably expected actual evasive patterns, not whatever this is. Chen's tactical genius was showing itself in full force. His strategy? Make the human fleet look like a bunch of drunk college students trying to parallel park in space. Ships wobbled uncertainly, thrusters fired at seemingly random intervals, and the formation looked like it had been designed by a cat, walking across a keyboard. Fascinating, Rodriguez commented from her station. They're actually slowing down their attacks. I think we've confused them. Message from the flagship, Wong reported. Your pathetic attempts at resistance only prove your technological inferiority. Surrender now, and we will be merciful. He paused. They added 3 exclamation points. 3 exclamation points? Blackwood shook her head. Now that's just unprofessional. The real beauty of humanity's obsolete weapon systems wasn't their simplicity. It was their fundamental nature. Energy shields, for all their fancy quantum mechanics and photonic barriers, had one critical weakness. They were designed to defend against energy weapons. The principle was simple. Fight fire with fire, or in this case, fight energy with energy. But kinetic weapons, they were literally just throwing things really, really fast. Remember that time at the academy, Chen's voice came through again, when Professor Zhang asked why humans stuck with railguns? Blackwood remembered. She also remembered the lecture that followed, about how humanity had discovered something incredible during their early shield experiments. The faster you made your energy shields, the worse they were at stopping physical objects. It was like trying to stop a bullet with a flashlight. Current shield analysis complete, Chen reported, his voice taking on that particular tone of someone trying not to laugh. They've actually increased power to their energy barriers. They think they're being clever. The Khazari fleet had arranged themselves in an attack pattern that probably looked very impressive in their tactical manuals. Their shields were at maximum power, creating overlapping fields of protection that would have been absolutely perfect against energy weapons. All ships reporting ready, Wong said quietly. Chen's unique formation has put us exactly where we need to be. What looked like a scattered, disorganized mess of human ships was actually a perfectly calculated firing solution. Each random movement had brought them into optimal position for what was about to happen next. You know, Blackwood mused, I almost feel bad about this. It's like they didn't even consider why a species would choose to keep using primitive weapons after developing energy technology. Message from High Commander Vexathor, Rodriguez announced. Your pitiful display only confirms our assessment. This is your final warning. How many exclamation points this time? 5. Now they're just being emotional. Blackwood straightened in her chair. Chen, are your gunners ready to show our friends why humans never upgraded our weapons? Ready and eager, Captain. Thompson in Gunnery 3 has been making airplane noises for the last 10 minutes. The Khazari ships hung in space, their shields gleaming with enough power to stop a small sun. They had positioned themselves perfectly to defend against energy weapons they assumed the humans must be hiding. After all, no advanced species would actually choose to use primitive kinetic weapons, right? You know what the best part is? Chen said as the railgun capacitors charged silently across the fleet. They still think we're the backward ones. All that technology, and they never once wondered why every human ship they'd ever encountered still carried obsolete weapons. Blackwood allowed herself a small smile. In about 30 seconds, the Khazari were going to learn a very expensive lesson about making assumptions. Their mighty shields, calibrated to stop energy weapons, were about to face something much simpler, good old-fashioned tungsten rounds moving at a significant fraction of light speed. All ships, she said calmly, execute Chen Maneuver Alpha. Let's show them why sometimes the old ways are the best ways. After all, humanity hadn't kept their railguns because they couldn't figure out energy weapons. They'd kept them because they worked. Fire, one word spoken calmly, and the void of space lit up with what could only be described as humanity's finest moment of "I told you so." The ESS Relentless shuddered as her railguns unleashed their payload. Across the human fleet, primitive weapon systems roared to life. There was no energy signature warning, no fancy light show, just hundreds of tungsten rounds suddenly existing in one place and very much wanting to be somewhere else, very, very quickly. The first round hit the Khazari flagship's shields at roughly 30% the speed of light. The barrier, tuned to disperse energy weapons, tried to respond, the key word being tried. It was like using a soap bubble to stop a bullet. Oh! High Commander Vexathor's voice crackled across all frequencies, a single syllable packed with the sudden understanding of someone who had just realized they'd brought a lightning rod to a gunfight. Oh no! The transmission cut off as the first salvo tore through their flagship's command center. The mighty shields, which had been proudly displayed in that diplomatic hologram just hours ago, might as well have been tissue paper. Status report, Blackwood called out, watching as Lieutenant Commander Chen's precisely calculated firing solutions played out like a deadly ballet. Their shields are attempting to reconfigure, Wong reported, not bothering to hide his grin. They're trying to adapt to kinetic impacts. Unfortunately for them, Chen's voice cut in, they'd need about 300 years of weapons development experience to do that effectively, which, coincidentally, is exactly what we have. The human fleet's formation, which had looked so chaotic and random, suddenly revealed its true purpose. Each ship was perfectly positioned to exploit the gaps in the Khazari shield harmonics that appeared when their barriers tried to shift from energy to kinetic defense. You know what the really beautiful part is, Rodriguez commented, watching her tactical display. Our targeting systems are actually more advanced than theirs. We just package them with primitive delivery methods. She was right. While the Khazari had focused on making their energy weapons more powerful, humanity had perfected the art of hitting things very precisely with very fast objects. The result was playing out before them like a cosmic demonstration of why you should never judge a book by its cover, or a species by their apparent technology level. Their second battlecruiser just lost primary power, Wong reported. Apparently having a tungsten round pass through your reactor core at relativistic speeds is bad for system stability. Who knew? Engineering principles are funny that way, Blackwood mused, watching as another Khazari ship's shield matrix collapsed. Chen, how's our ammunition status? Oh, we've got plenty, Chen replied cheerfully, though I don't think we'll need it all. Thompson's actually keeping score in Gunnery 3. He's turned it into a competition. The Khazari fleet's perfect formation had devolved into chaos. Ships tried to maneuver, but Chen's firing solutions had predicted every possible escape route. It was like watching a chess master spring a trap 20 moves in the making. "Incoming transmission," Rodriguez announced. It's mostly screaming, but I think they're trying to surrender." "Their shields are actually making it worse," Chen observed. "The energy they're pouring into them is creating harmonic resonances that are guiding our rounds right to their critical systems. It's like they designed their defenses specifically to fail against kinetic weapons." A Khazari cruiser, attempting to power up its jump drive, took a spread of rounds through its engine section. The resulting explosion was technically silent in space, but everyone on the bridge could swear they heard a satisfying pop. "Message from the remaining Khazari ships," Rodriguez reported. "Please cease fire. We miscalculated." She paused. No exclamation points this time. "Miscalculated," Blackwood repeated. "That's one way to put it." "Chen's status?" 5 of their 7 ships are effectively neutralized. The remaining 2 have dropped their shields entirely. Probably the smartest decision they've made all day. Thompson is disappointed. He was 2 hits away from beating Gunnery 2's score. The battle, if you could even call it that, had lasted less than 3 minutes. The mighty Khazari fleet, with all its advanced energy weapons and superior technology, had been systematically dismantled by what they had dismissed as primitive weapons. "You know what the real irony is," Wong said, reviewing the battle data. "Their ships are actually incredibly well designed. Against energy weapons, the entire civilization developed along a single technological path and never considered alternatives. Whereas humanity," Blackwood added, "kept every weapon that worked and didn't care if it looked primitive. Sometimes the simple solution is the best solution." "Captain," Rodriguez cut in, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the surviving Khazari ships. High Commander Vexathor, his second-in-command would like to discuss terms." "Put them through," Blackwood ordered, straightening her uniform. "Let's be professional about this." The image that appeared on screen showed a distinctly disheveled Khazari officer. All 4 of his eyes were wide, and his iridescent skin had taken on a distinctly pale hue. "The Khazari Empire," he started, then swallowed hard. "The Khazari Empire requests an immediate cessation of hostilities and—" Another pause. "And would like to formally apologize for any misconceptions about humanity's military capabilities." "Misconceptions," Blackwood repeated slowly. "You mean like assuming that just because we use kinetic weapons, we must be technologically inferior?" The officer looked physically pained. "We may have been somewhat hasty in our assessment." "Somewhat hasty," Wong muttered, "like calling a supernova a warm day." Blackwood leaned forward in her chair. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to take your surviving ships and return to Khazari space, and you're going to tell everyone you meet why humans still use primitive weapons." Of course, the officer agreed quickly. "Though, may I ask one question?" "Go ahead." "Your energy weapon technology, you do have it, don't you? You just choose not to use it." Blackwood smiled. It was not a comforting smile. "Would you like a demonstration?" "No." All 4 eyes widened further. "No, that won't be necessary. We'll be going now." As the transmission cut off, Chen's voice came through again. "Thompson wants to know if this means the competition is over. He was really hoping to beat Gunnery 2's score." "Tell Thompson there'll be other opportunities," Blackwood replied. "Something tells me word of this is going to spread, and not everyone will learn from the Khazari's mistake." "Human nature being what it is," Wong observed, "there's always someone who needs to learn the hard way." "True," Blackwood agreed, watching the surviving Khazari ships limp away. "But at least now they know, sometimes the old ways are the best ways, and underestimating primitive technology can be a very, very expensive mistake." 2 weeks after what was now being called the Great Khazari Humbling, Captain Blackwood sat in her ready room, reading through the flood of diplomatic messages with undisguised amusement. "Here's another good one," she called to Wong, who was sorting through his own stack of transmissions. "The Centaurian Confederation wishes to express its deepest respect for Earth's unique approach to military technology." They underlined unique 3 times. "That's nothing," Wong replied. "The Proxima Alliance just sent us a formal apology for calling our railguns charmingly obsolete last year. They included a gift basket." "Well, the alien equivalent." "I think it's a gift basket. Might be modern art." Rodriguez poked her head in. Captain, you're going to love this. Remember those Arcturus delegates who laughed at our missile systems? They just requested a joint military exercise. Apparently they want to, she checked her datapad, explore the strategic advantages of hybrid warfare approaches. Amazing how quickly primitive becomes innovative when you blow up someone's fancy fleet, Blackwood mused. She turned to her personal display, where a message from Earth Command was waiting. Oh, this is interesting. They're finally letting us unveil Project Thunderbolt. The energy weapon platforms, Wong raised an eyebrow. Thought those were classified for another decade. Apparently, Command thinks it's time to show everyone that we didn't stick with kinetic weapons because we couldn't figure out the alternatives. Blackwood grinned. Chen's going to be disappointed. He was enjoying everyone thinking we were technological underdogs. Speaking of Chen, Rodriguez interjected, he's finished compiling the battle analysis. The Khazari shields actually helped guide our rounds to their targets. Their own defensive technology made them more vulnerable. Perfect, Blackwood said, standing up. Send that to all our diplomatic channels. Mark it as educational material. She walked to the window, watching as repair crews worked on a damaged section of the Relentless. The damage hadn't come from the Khazari. They'd barely scratched the paint. No, this was from Thompson's enthusiastic celebration in Gunnery 3 when he finally beat Gunnery 2's score. Final message to the Khazari, Wong prompted. Blackwood's smile would have made a shark proud. Send this. The Earth Defense Force appreciates your recent contribution to our tactical database. Your shield technology provided excellent research data. As a gesture of goodwill, we've attached specifications for our basic railgun systems, the ones we considered outdated 50 years ago. Perhaps studying them will help you understand why we kept them. P.S. Those weren't our good ships. That's evil, Rodriguez said admiringly. Adding that last part will keep them up at night. Should we tell them about the energy weapon platforms? Wong asked. Eventually, Blackwood replied. But let's wait until the next species decides we're easy pickings because of our primitive technology. I want to see if anyone else makes the same mistake. A flash of light caught their attention. Through the window, they could see Earth's newest defense platform moving into position. Its sleek design concealed both state-of-the-art energy weapons and good old-fashioned kinetic systems. You know what the funniest part is, Blackwood said, watching the platform's weapon systems run through their calibration sequence. We tried to tell everyone. We published papers on the advantages of hybrid weapon systems, held seminars at galactic defense conferences, but everyone was so convinced that newer meant better. Human nature, Wong observed, or I guess alien nature in this case. Captain, Rodriguez interrupted, incoming message from the Khazari border. 3 more empires have requested technological exchange programs. They're specifically asking about our primitive but highly effective defense systems. Send them the standard response package, Blackwood replied. The one that starts with, sometimes the old ways are the best ways, and ends with the casualty figures from the Khazari encounter. As her crew dispersed, Blackwood looked one more time at the defense platform outside. Its energy weapons were perfectly capable of matching anything the Khazari had thrown at them. But there was something satisfying about the railguns mounted alongside them, something wonderfully reliable about a weapon that didn't care about shield harmonics or power fluctuations. Sometimes the simplest solution was the best solution, and if anyone else wanted to test that theory, well, Earth had plenty of tungsten rounds to spare, and now everyone knew it.